Here's the Raiders selection in Kansas City.
With the 7th pick in the 2023 NFL Draft, the Las Vegas Raiders select Tyree Wilson, defensive end, Texas Tech.
All right.
Welcome to the Put on Waivers Media Group, home of the Put on Raiders podcast and the Student Body Right podcast. This is your place for the best breakdowns and the best insight for those who fight on and bleed silver and black. Now, here are your hosts, Dwayne Douglas and Ryan Holmes.
Welcome everybody to the glorious episode of the Put on Raiders podcast. I'm your host, Dwayne Douglas, along with Ryan Holmes, and we are podcasting on the beautiful shores of the Pacific Ocean. Beautiful day out here in Southern California. PORSBR is my Twitter handle. Ryan Holmes is RHOLM22. Ryan got the black top on with the white beats on, looking fresh. You know what I'm saying? Beard cut up. I love it. So let's go talk about the Raiders and answer some of your questions here on the show. But before we do that, please rate, review, subscribe, leave a comment, and like and all that stuff like that. It helps grow the show. So keep doing that. I love putting our comments on Twitter so everybody can see those comments. So keep doing that. Ryan, how are you?
Good. I don't know what day of the week it is. It's very busy, but I'm available tonight. So let's get after it.
Let's get after it a little bit. All right. So let's start off with some questions. I never understood why people do shows and have questions at the end. Let's do them at the beginning. First of all, we got from Lee from Oakland. How would you grade the Raiders? How do we grade on the Raiders free agency so far? You go first. What would you want to grade them?
By the 3 players they've signed or in total? In total
right now.
I'd give it a B+. They've addressed the defensive line, the defensive tackle. They got a premier player, the best player in free agency, outside of Chris Jones, who didn't make it to free agency. So they answered the defensive line, the defensive tackle question. They gave him a lot of money, but that's what you have to do in the free agent market. They didn't have to give up draft capital to get him. The other ones, the running back Madison from the Vikings, I'd give that like a C-. Like, he's a backup running back for a reason. He can come in. He's more of a power back than he is a wide outside zone. So I don't know what he's going to do with the offensive scheme. He's not great on third downs out of the backfield. So he's basically just the backup running back for running downs, which would lead me to believe that Amir Abdullah probably going to make this team unless they draft a third down scat back type guy in the draft. And then Gardner Minshew's insurance if they don't hit in the draft. And preferably Gardner Minshew doesn't take very many snaps this year. So Christian Wilkins is the bell cow of free agency. They haven't done much else besides that. But they did get a Pro Bowl level defensive lineman. So can't really give them a bad grade for that.
Yeah. I mean, obviously these, for these teams in the National Football League, all of them who are really, really good have good defensive lines. And I think the Raiders solidify the defensive tackle. They have, I can't remember when the Raiders had this many defensive tackle options, including a guy who was one of the top players in the league. So to kind of echo your sentiments, somebody rated that I don't know if it's ESPN or somebody rated it like a C-. They had Christian Wilkins. I'm like, to each his own. Everybody has their own opinion, but he's the guy's one of the top players in the league. And when you couple that with the way Kuntz has played, with hopefully Tyree gets going, and then you also have Max Crosby third down. Even if you're a bad defense, you put people in third and long a lot. This is not a bad defense. So when they put them in third and long, put the opponents in third and long, like they have a great opportunity to get sacks, to get havoc plays and turnover worthy plays as well. And that's the whole goal of defense. The running back situation, I thought they would just go to the draft for it. I like kind of variety in my backfield. So so getting Madison doesn't really move me in any way whatsoever. And that's pretty much it as far as the free agency goes. I know they picked up a backup tight end as well to replace Hooper and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, I think it's a solid start. Could they use some depth in some other pieces? Yes. I mean, but players still have to come in like Bennett, people like that. They have to start developing. Like you can't just go free agency on every single position. So hopefully some of these guys who have to develop will take the bull by the horns and make some plays.
Yeah, I wouldn't overlook Adam Butler and John Jenkins bringing those guys back. That they're going to play a lot of snaps.
Yep.
Adam Butler, if Tyree Wilson doesn't come along, Adam Butler is fine as the fourth rusher on third down. He could help his teammates. He's good on stunts. He got 5 sacks of his own last year. Then John Jenkins is just your typical nose tackle. Get him in there on rundown, short yardage, let him eat up blocks so the linebackers can run to the ball. He's not going to play a ton of snaps. So I think between those two and Wilkins, and then hopefully one of the younger defensive linemen, whether that's Nesta Jade Silvera, Byron Young, like one of those two guys needs to be the fourth guy in the rotation.
Yep.
And then now I think you just need to add one more pass rusher on the outside as depth in case something happens to one of those starters and Tyree Wilson isn't fully up to par. And then you're set in the defensive line room. So I wouldn't expect them to draft a lot along the defensive line, maybe like a 4th or 5th round developmental pass rusher behind Kuntz and Wilson. But other than that, bringing those two guys back, it's huge. And they didn't really pay a lot for either one of them either.
No, he didn't. And they're familiar with the system. They've been, I mean, Butler didn't, I think Butler played with Wilkins in Miami too, right? So that's something to look forward to as well. A guy like Kareem Hunt is still available. Would you have liked a Kareem Hunt over a guy like Madison? Kevin, give a little more change of pace, or do you think that's the same role as Abdullah?
Do we know what Kareem Hunt wants and how much money he's asking? Because that's a big factor here. A lot of people
that's
just
true.
see it and say, hey, they signed it Madison over Hunt, but what if Hunt wanted more money?
Yeah.
And they have a certain amount of money budgeted to the backfield. Obviously, letting Josh Jacobs go, they're not going to spend a lot of money on running backs. They're going to build up the offensive line and the defensive line.
Yep.
And Hunt may have priced himself out of that. And we talked about this on this show before Antonio Pierce was hired, that if Antonio Pierce got this job, they were going to build up the defense. And we were really concerned about what the offense would look like. Is it just going to be run, try to convert on third down and punt? And right now the offense really scares me. But obviously the draft is still ahead of us and they can make a chance there. But this offense has gotten worse over the offseason.
Yeah, it has. It definitely has. We talk about that too as well. Next question from Jim wants to know where we do mocks. I mean, we'll do mocks as we still got some time. I kind of like to do the the Mike Mayock when Mike Mayock was on TV. I like how we just did one mock. There wasn't no 8.0, 5.0, 10.0. We'll just do one each and then just take it from there. To answer that question, as far as is Madison more of a zone or power back? I think we answered that already. He's a power back, right? Yeah. He's a power back. I think the thing that we have to keep in mind is the fumbles, right? I think he fumbled last year a little bit. Unfortunately, was receiving some death threats from crazy Viking fans. But yeah, so that would probably be the biggest thing that I would say it could be an issue. But if you look at his game logs, the last year was the one year where he fumbled. He didn't fumble a lot in previous seasons.
I would add that the Vikings felt strongly enough about him to let Dalvin Cook walk. They released Dalvin Cook last year to give Madison the shot. He didn't really run away with it. And then I believe it was Chandler, the running back that got out of North Carolina, ended up getting a lot of snaps in the second half. Once Kirk Cousins was hurt. But yeah, Madison's not. He's more of a power guy that's going to run more gap schemes versus the guy that's going to stretch it and make a cut up field that you want an outside zone. The Raiders ran a lot more power better. They ran power better with Zamir White, but then they ran a lot of duo. Where they would double team the two front side players and then the center would work to the backside. So will they mix him more duo? I don't know if Getsy's going to do that, but his system comes from Green Bay and San Francisco where it's based on outside zone. I don't think Madison's a great fit.
True. Knicks versus Penix, Jerry from Las Vegas. I think so, and this is going to be the topic forever until the draft starts. I'm okay with both. I think the biggest thing that would have the edge for the biggest intangible that puts Penix a little ahead of Knicks for me is the arm talent. Like his arm is ridiculous. So like I mean, he can make some really cool, some really amazing throws, and I think that was something that where you have to like take into account when you have two guys who are very similar. Not similar in play style, but similar as far as grade, as far as that goes. I think Penix, I mean Knicks's difference for me is his ability to move around and create a little bit. But so and if you want to do a timing system where he gets the ball out quick and let your weapons run around and do their thing, that's something where you could look at, hey, I want Knicks instead of Penix. But I think the biggest intangible that makes the difference between the two is probably that arm.
Yeah, see, I think Knicks is going to go before Penix in the draft. I would rather have Penix of the two. And a lot going into the draft process, Knicks is going to win out, and clearly the medical is going to be an issue when these teams get into draft rooms. Will probably give Knicks the advantage. My biggest concern with Knicks, and I know he completed 77% of passes, but his lower half and his throwing mechanics is going to lead to some issues. Driving the football down the field and on those deep intermediate passes. Can he throw screens and get the ball out in the flat and throw some slants and throw the ball underneath, maybe some outs? Yeah. Michael Penix can make special throws, and he can make game-winning throws down the field, the deep corners, the deep comebacks, the vertical game. But what he doesn't have is a clean medical, and what he doesn't really do is scramble. He's not very mobile. I know people want to say they watched the Texas game and they think he's CJ Stroud part two because that Stroud did the same thing against Georgia. Michael Penix is not a scrambler. He's not going to get out there and run around and make plays with his legs. Can he avoid the rush here and there? Yeah, he can a little bit, but Michael Penix also wasn't very good under pressure. So you're going to have a pretty good offensive line. He doesn't take a lot of sacks. He gets rid of the ball, but a lot of times that's just getting it out quickly to like a hot receiver, getting it out quickly to the back, which is good. You need to do that, avoid taking sacks. But I do think that he would be a fit in a vertical passing game that runs the football and there's a lot of play action, which is what Antonio Pierce has talked about.
Yeah.
That's not really what Luke Getsy has designed as an offense or call. So it's going to be really interesting to see what type of offense the Raiders run, because right now we think we know what kind of offense Luke Getsy's going to run. We have no idea.
Yeah, we until we see it on Sundays, we won't have any, and we won't have any idea. I think for Knicks, for Knicks, I would say you got. I mean, for Knicks, for Penix, you got to. He has no missed games the last 2 years in Washington. And then he also has, you have to defend every blade of grass because he can throw the ball because of those deep vertical plays, and it's going to lead to some one-on-ones with your back out of the backfield against a linebacker, and some plays where he can get rid of the ball quickly to a tight end and things like that. So, and then with Knicks, I mean, Knicks can do a lot of the things where I think almost like Knicks might what we envisage what Getsy's offense is. I think Knicks's ability might fit it better, but you never know. Who knows what he's actually going to do as far as that goes. Sarah wants to know did AP talk a little bit too much about Jaden Daniels? In every interview talking about Jaden Daniels. Bringing him into the locker room after the last game of the year, when he didn't really, when the Raiders don't really have we don't know if they don't have a plan to get him, but it's gonna be difficult for them to get him from where they sit in the draft currently.
Yeah, I'm going to say no, he didn't, because at the end of the day, NFL personnel departments evaluate Jaden Daniels based on his film and what kind of player they think he's going to be. They don't care what the media says. They don't care about sound bites from other teams. So every team's individual evaluation of Jaden Daniels has nothing to do with what Antonio Pierce said. This isn't, oh, the Raiders wanted Antonio Pierce, so now all these other teams like him. That has nothing to do with it. So I would say no. Like, did he show the Raiders have interest? The only comeback I would say is if the Raiders were trying, if those picks were for sale, I don't think they are, the first and second one.
No,
but if it was, then I would say maybe a little bit. The price would probably be a little bit higher because of of Antonio Pierce's affection towards Jaden Daniels, but
Yeah.
I don't think picks 1 and 2 are for sale. So at the end of the day, it's a moot point.
And then we got James who wants to know how do we feel about the Marvin Harrison Jr. like with no pro day, and then Caleb Williams is pro day. I think as I watch Caleb Williams pro day, I mean pro days are pro days. He's throwing to his friends. I think it's a good way for him to show. I think by on purpose today they did a bunch of stuff that was in pocket. It was in the pocket. It was no running around by him. Got a chance to see some receivers, and I know Marshawn Lloyd is a guy who a lot of people like at running back. So we got that stuff as well. I mean, a pro day is a pro day. But as far as Marvin Harrison Jr., I mean, that's their prerogative. If he wants to do that, he wants to do that. I mean, I think it'd be cool if he just had a pro day. But if he doesn't want to do a pro day, there's nothing you can do.
Yeah, as far as the pro days, like I don't think teams care about quarterback pro days unless it's horrifically bad.
Yes.
Which never happens. Teams don't care about pro days in that regard. It's more for the testing for the guys that didn't do it at the combine, and hopefully getting some coaches down on the field with these players. It's more about individual workouts. When these teams bring these players in for individual workouts that the media doesn't know about and they don't have access to, they're going to learn way more in that than they are in a pro day that's been scripted and they've practiced over and over again. As far as Marvin Harrison Jr., that's his choice. Not to go through any of the drills and all that. He probably feels comfortable that he's going to go in the top 5 or 6, and him and his agent probably sat down and realized he's not going to go 1, 2, or 3. So they've probably already spoken to teams 4, 5, and 6 in the draft and have a pretty good idea of where he's going to go and where he's going to land. So can it fight him? Is there teams that may push Neighbors or Dunze above him? Sure. I'm sure there's teams that probably have those guys over him now already. I do find it interesting that Albert Breer, who went to Ohio State, obviously, because that's all he talks about on Twitter, like he makes excuses for every guy at Ohio State. If they don't do something, it's because of this. And then he's the first one to jump on every other player in the country, but he will not say anything negative about anyone at Ohio State at any time.
I got a series. I won't get into it right now, but I'm not a big fan of Albert. I got beef for Albert of a lot of different things, especially Patriot.
Travis will throw, lobs it deep, and wide open is Johnny Wilson inside the 40. Wilson wrapped up at the 30. Touchdown saving tackle by. First down and goal from the 4. Florida State looking to go up 2 scores here. Travis wide open back in the end zone. Touchdown. It's Preston Daniel on the 40-yard line with Jordan Travis in the game at quarterback, and he'll throw it. Jaheim Bell comes free, breaks a tackle at the 15. Another tackle, dives for the end zone, and down at the half-yard line. Play clock at 2. Travis, end zone, wide open, touchdown.